a new doubt, then that's a new issue, you have to go and tackle that again and come to another level of certainty. Right? But don't go backwards. Never go backwards and start doubting the things that you already know. Don't refuse to act or believe in things that you already know. If not, then we're no different than this threat that Allah offers the disciples also will include us, and there's no excuse left for us at that point. Now, one thing, if you remember, in this episode, right, this is the interaction of Jesus with his disciples. In this episode, we started out going through certain verses where the disciples were being asked, who's going to be my helper? Man ansari ilallah. Right, at that point, the disciples stepped forward and said, we'll be your helpers. We'll be the helpers on this path that you're taking towards Allah. Right, they expressed this extreme devotion, rock solid faith in Isa, and it seems like at that point they are set, and they are the disciples that we know them to be. In these verses, though, where they're asking for this miracle, it doesn't seem like that. Right? At this point, it seems like they're still at a more elementary stage in their development when they're asking for the Ma'idah to be sent down. They don't yet believe like they should, like they do later on. What that tells us then is that the order of the verses in the Quran is not the same as the order of the verses or order of the events in real life. And that's nothing strange. The Quran does that sometimes. It'll juggle up a story, and for different reasons, it'll tell you the end of the story first, and then it'll go back to the beginning of the story. There's an example of that in Surah Al-Baqarah, the story of the Baqarah, of the cow. I think I narrated the story for you a couple of days ago. But in that story, it first tells us about how the Jews were commanded to kill a cow, and then they start asking what color, what size, what age, and all these sorts of things. It first tells us that. Then it goes back and says, and remember the time when they killed a person, and then we told them to kill a cow and hit the dead body with a piece of the cow. Right? So first it tells us the end of the story, which is the solution: go kill a cow, and they ask the questions. Then it goes back to the beginning of the story and tells us, remember when they killed the cow in the first place, killed the person in the first place, and then he asked them to kill the cow to solve the crime. Right? So it juggles up the story. It first tells us the end, and it tells us the beginning. And there's nothing wrong with that. The Quran is not a storybook. It's not trying to tell us history. And it's clear, when you put the thing together, it's clear to us. It's not misleading us. It's clear that the beginning of the story is told second. The same thing's happening here. Right? This is my claim. The only place I saw evidence of this in the commentaries was in Tafsir al-Amthal. Ayatollah Makaram Shirazi, he mentioned this possibility that these verses are mixed up a little bit in terms of the order in the Quran. And so these verses about the Ma'idah, these actually show a more elementary stage in the development of the disciples. And then, after that, they're asked the question, will you be my supporters? Will you be the ones that will aid me on this path towards Allah? Right? And there, they're absolutely firm in their belief. And they say, yes, we will. We are Muslim, they say, which means we're totally submitted. We believe, we'll follow you. And then they're also included as the shuhada, the witnesses who will testify on the Day of Judgment that Isa a.s. did his job. He conveyed his message as he was supposed to. So that's the end of this episode. And at the end of the discussion, if you have some questions, we can address those. Now let's jump ahead to do a little bit of a switch here. Okay. Recite with Salah as I said on this one. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So the fifth section of the story is what happens between Jesus and the Bani Israel in general. Right? What's the reaction of the Jews, besides his disciples? If you remember, in the section that talks about the disciples, there's this phrase that said, when he feared that the Bani Israel in general were not going to believe, and they were going to stay after, at that point he asked Man Ansari ilallah, who will be my supporters? And so he saw that his call was not being answered favorably by all of the Jews to whom he had been sent. So what happens then is that the Jews, they start to conspire against him. They have the prophecies, right, to indicate that Jesus is the fulfillment of those prophecies. He's the Messiah, the one who's been predicted as the king, or the one who's anointed and appointed by God. They have those prophecies. They see his miracles. And his miracles, anyone who's, even if you're blind, you can see his miracles, because they'll make you see first, and then you'll see the miracles. Right? Everyone sees his miracles, but they're Jews who refuse to accept it. And that's the vast majority of the Jews refuse to accept it, actually. They start to plot against him. And the Quran tells us a little bit about the interaction with the Bani Israel. What I want to do, let's just go through these verses first, and then I'm going to go back and explain some things about it. This is in Surah Al-Imran 3, verse 54. وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. Then they plotted. The they, in the context of these verses, the they definitely refers back to the Bani Israel. Right? So they plotted, the Bani Israel plotted, and God plotted. And God is the best of plotters. We'll go back through the verses again, I'll explain a little bit about these verses. The next verse, 355, إِذْ قَالَ اللَّهُ يَا عِيسَى إِنِّي مُتَوَفِّيكَ وَرَافِعُكَ إِلَيَّ وَمُطَهِّرُكَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَجَاعِلُ الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوكَ فَوْقَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ ثُمَّ إِلَيَّ مَرْجِعُكُمْ فَأَحْكُمُ بَيْنَكُمْ فِيمَا كُنْتُمْ فِيهِ تَخْتَلِفُونَ. Remember when God said, right, this is really Allah's mak. The Jews had their plots. This is Allah's plots and plans to save Jesus, protect him, and save the nation, right? Despite all of the machinations, all the plans and plots of the Jews. So this is the plan. Remember what God said to Jesus, "O Jesus, I shall take you from them, and I shall raise you into my proximity, and I shall free you of the filth of those who have not believed. And I shall make those who follow you dominate those who do not believe in you, until the day of resurrection. Then to me will be your return, whereupon I shall judge among you concerning that about which you used to differ." Okay, so this is the plan. I'm going to lift you off. I'll discuss a little what that means. Where does he go? What happens to Jesus? But he's going to do something to take him away from the people. And he makes some promises for what's going to happen between now and the day of judgment. And then he says, on the day of judgment, you're all going to return to me, and then I'll settle the scores and decide let you know who's been right and who's been wrong. The next verse is 356. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا فَأُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَمَا لَهُم مِّن نَاصِرِينَ. As for those who did not believe in you, I shall punish them severely in the temporal world by subjugating them to those who did, and I shall punish them in the hereafter, at which point they shall have no helpers. Okay, so he says, on the day of judgment, that's when I'm going to decide, and those people who didn't believe in you, who didn't accept you as their prophet, meaning the Jews who didn't believe in you, there'll be two punishments. One punishment will have already been served to them, because in the previous verse he said, one of the promises I give you is that those who follow you will dominate, and those who disbelieve in you, the Bani Israel, the Jews, they will be subjugated until the day of judgment. That's already one punishment that occurs in the dunya. Then on the day of judgment, that's when I'll punish them, and they'll have no helpers at that point. They might have helpers, and George Bush and stuff over here, but then on the day of judgment, George Bush is going to be there to help. This is 357. وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَيُوَفِّيهِمْ أُجُورَهُمْ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. As for those among your followers who believe in the truth and do righteous deeds, God will pay them their rewards in full. God does not like the wrongdoers. Again, we'll go back to these verses and see. Sometimes it's not exactly clear what's being referred to in the verses. So I'll come back and try to fill in all the blanks. Let's just see all the verses. Today's